Hello guys, this is Nathalie and I'm gonna present the four major classifications of joints. Hope you like it, and again, sorry for the drawings in advance. Alright, so our first major classification of joints will be the bony joints. So this occurs when two bones fuse and become one bone. So this is also called the synostosis because there's no movement occurring between those bones, and this can be seen between the mandible, the jaw, and the frontal bone up here. So when we're an infant, these are actually kind of separated, but they fuse or they become one bone as we grow. And this also happens when the first rib fuses with the sternum, or when the epiphysis of long bones fuses with the diaphysis. So those are the other examples of bony joints. Our second type of joint would be the fibrous joint, and these are bones that are bound by short collagen fibers, and these fibers allow very little movement, and this joint is also called the synarthrosis. So there's three kinds of fibrous joints. One would be the suture, which are joints between cranial bones. The second one would be gymphosis. These are joints between a tooth and the mandible or maxilla. And the third one would be syndesmosis, which is slightly more movable, and the fibers are a little longer, which allows for the slight movement. And this also holds two bones next to each other, like with the ulna and radius, or the tibia and fibula. So my example right here would be for the suture, which is the joint between the cranial bones up here. So there's gonna be like a joint up here when you zoom it in, but I didn't like put it in detail for this one. But that would be one of the examples that I have. Our next joint would be the cartilaginous joint. So these are the ones where there's two bones and they are linked by a cartilage. So this provides for a moderate amount of movement, and this is also why they're called amphiarthrosis. And there's two types of this kind of joint based on the cartilage used. So the first one would be synchondrosis. So these are the bones that are bound by hyaline cartilage. An example would be joints in children between the diaphysis and epiphysis, and between the first rib and sternum. And the second would be the symphysis. These are the bones that are bound by a thick layer of fibrocartilage, and an example would be the pubic symphysis and intervertebral disc. So my example right here for this one would be the intervertebral disc, which is for the symphysis. So the ones that are in here would be the joints. That would be for this example. So this is like our backbone or our spine, but these are like the joints that connects the bones that we have. So the last joint would be the synovial joint or the diarthrosis. So this is quite common in the body, and it involves a fluid-filled cavity, which is called the joint cavity, that connects the bones because of this fluid or synovial fluid between them, which makes the joint freely movable, like our fingers, our knuckles, our elbow, our knees. We can move those because of this cavity and fluid together, but it also has a joint capsule that surrounds the joint cavity, and it includes an outer fibrous capsule that helps hold the joint together and retain the fluid, the synovial fluid. And there's also an inner synovial membrane that produces the synovial fluid. And each of the facing surfaces of the bones has articular cartilage or the hyaline, to again reduce the friction should the bones contact each other. So there are other structures related to synovial joints. These are the tendons, which are rope-like structures that attach muscles to bones. Ligaments, rope-like structures that attach bones to other bones. And there's bursa, which is a fibrous sac filled with synovial fluid that cushions bones and allows tendons to slide more easily over bones. And then there are two structures that can occur at a synovial joint. The first one is the articular disc. This is a fibrocartilage that extends across the joint cavity to create sectioned areas of the synovial fluid for a greater variety of movement. An example would be the temporomandibular joint, which and the ends of the clavicles and joints between ulna and carpals. And the second one would be the meniscus, which is a fibrocartilage pad that covers parts of the tibia in the knee joint to absorb extra force. Synovial joints can also operate in variety of axes or planes. So there's multiaxial, which is a joint that can move in 3 axes or planes. So 3 for multi, that's like to help you like remember in case. And the biaxial, which is a joint that can move in 2 axes or planes, 2 for bi. And monoaxial joint that can move 1 axis or plane, which is mon. Mono is for 1, bi is for 2, so just to help you remember. And there's synovial joints that come in 6 forms. Synovial joints come in 6 forms. So the first one would be the ball and socket joints. So these are multiaxial. And an example would be hip and shoulder. And then condylar joints would be biaxial, and examples would be between metacarpals and phalanges. The third one would be the saddle joints. These are biaxial. An example would be between trapezium and the first metacarpal of the thumb. Fourth one would be the plane joints, biaxial as well. An example would be between carpals and between tarsals. Fifth one would be the hinge joints. These are monoaxial. An example would be an elbow and knee. And the last one would be the fibot joints. These are monoaxial. An example would be head of the radius with the ulna. So those are all under synovial joints altogether. That's the end of my presentation. I hope it helped you in some ways, and thanks for watching and listening.